Hello, everyone, and welcome to Clair Astrology. I'm Clair, and on this channel, you will hear topics on spirituality and astrology to help you evolve. Today is the eighth video in my series called Discover Your Life Purpose Through Astrology. And in this video, you're going to learn what it means to have your North Node in the eighth house and the eighth sign, Scorpio. So to begin, I'm going to give you a brief description of what the North Node is, and then we'll get on to the house and sign descriptions. Before we go through the description for the house and sign, I want to make sure you understand what the life purpose point is and how to recognize it in your chart. Whenever we talk about the lunar nodes in astrology, we are referring to two mathematical points that are calculated where the moon crosses the ecliptic. The North Node represents our Dharma, or life purpose, and the South Node represents our Karma, or where we are moving away from. As you can see here, the symbol for the North Node looks like a horseshoe, and the symbol for the South Node looks like that same horseshoe turned upside down. Now that you have a visual and definition for the North Node life purpose point, we can proceed. On this next slide, we have the Wheel of Houses, and this shows us what area of life the eighth house represents. The best way to understand the eighth house is to look at the house preceding it. This is because each house builds off the next. And if we have one-on-one partnerships and marriage happening in the seventh house, what naturally follows in the eighth house is a deeper, intimate relationship with another. This is the house of sex, shared finances, death, rebirth, and psychology. Basically, all the taboo subjects of life. So before we jump into all that, let me first say something about self-transformation. Oftentimes, when you merge with another, your identity changes. You go through a metamorphosis or self-transformation. You go from being single to being married, and perhaps your last name changes too. And on top of that, you have new responsibilities and obligations that come with being in a committed partnership. These responsibilities and roles change you. There is no doubt about it. You are no longer that free-spirited, independent person that you once were. The eighth house introduces you to the realities of life that come from cohabitating with another. And when we willingly accept these new roles and realities, we can grow and flourish in partnership in greater ways than we ever could have alone. Psychology is part of the eighth house because a lot of times people seek therapy at this point in their lives. And this is understandable because they are simply trying to grapple with who they are now and how they function best within their relationship. It's important that they can embrace their new identity so they can move forward in their relationship without losing themselves in the process. Traditionally, death is also grouped in this house, and I think it's because death is another hard part of life that affects our relationships significantly. It is something that we all have to face eventually. None of us can get out of it. And so, the more we can be emotionally and psychologically prepared for death, the better off we'll be when we are actually facing it. And another note about self-transformation, when we go through self-transformation, we often have to die or have an old part of us die before we can be reborn into a new person. So that's what I think the word rebirth is about. If you have a lot of planets in the eighth house, you might be someone who is comfortable with death and dying. You might even be a grievance counselor or volunteer in an assisted living center. But what's most important to remember if you have your North Node in the eighth house is that you are here to look deeply into life, not to run from the darkness, but to embrace it, to accept all imperfections about yourself and other people, and to hold space for those going through rough times. You are here to see life through the lens of a psychoanalyst and never listen to naysayers who tell you to lighten up, because that's not your job description this time around. Some jobs that could suit you, however, are a psychologist, a relationship therapist, a private investigator, a detective, lawyer, social worker, or any other position that allows you to sit with others and hold space for them to address and heal their wounds and fears. There is another job title that may suit you, and this is anything having to do with managing other people's money. You might be an excellent financial advisor or accountant because the eighth house deals with other people's finances. All that said, please keep in mind that the North Node is not always indicative of your career. It simply points the way you are headed and gives you character traits that you are here to embody. In summary, the eighth house really encompasses everything that we don't really like to talk about. It's the taboo subjects of life, the mysteries, the occult, sex, and dying. There are some people who don't ever like to dwell in these realms. And then there are others, like Scorpios, who feel quite comfortable addressing these topics with ease. Perhaps this is one of the reasons that Scorpios can sometimes come off as intense and intimidating. They are the ones who are willing to look at things squarely in the face that others simply are not. On that note, let's discuss what it means to have your North Node in Scorpio. Whenever I think of Scorpio, the first thing that comes to mind is the wise men and women of society, the shamans, the healers, and the ones who've had to walk through their own dark night of the soul. These folks are not the least bit faint hearted, for these are the people who can look at the blood and the gore and the taboo subjects of life without flinching. So we need these people to help us face our own darkness and battle our own demons. These are the souls that can stare right into your soul and sense what you're going through almost instantaneously. And because of this, they often make people feel uncomfortable. But Scorpios at the end of the day are just humans like the rest of us. Though they do have a reputation for being the most mysterious and intense sign of the zodiac, that is only because of their hypersensitivity to psychological and emotionally triggering content. One of the best things about a Scorpio North Node is that they can handle hard truths. This is why they make some of the best psychotherapists, counselors, and social workers. They are some of the best suited for holding space for another's despair, rage, or behavioral dysfunction. And they're also good at calling people out when they're being dishonest. They are the truth seekers and the wisdom keepers. So, if you have your North Node in Scorpio, know that you are being called to open your eyes, to live fully, embrace every emotion and every thought, even those that make others feel uncomfortable. In order to become a wise man or wise woman in your society, you'll need to do your own inner work, psychological analysis, and emotional development, so you can be a helpful guide to others. So, part of your work, if you have the North Node in Scorpio, is to be able to process your own past and to feel comfortable in the realm of the unconscious, where your deepest and most provocative emotions live. And to recognize that things are not always straightforward or clean cut. They are messy and complicated, and you are learning to be okay with that. Above all else, you are developing the ability to be present when other people need to express themselves to you. So, no matter how scary or how taboo or how inappropriate you think their problems are, your job is simply to hold space. Your job is to listen. And your job is to remain calm through emotional chaos. I hope you've enjoyed this video on the North Node in the 8th house and the North Node in Scorpio. If you have, feel free to leave a thumbs up or subscribe, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon.